I'm about to show you how you can take something you do every single day completely naturally, and when you integrate it into your writing, it's going to level it up immediately. When you're in the middle of your writing, it's often hard to know what to cut and what to keep. What do you leave in and what do you leave out? How do you make sure you do it in a way that tells a story that is exciting and compelling for your reader and keeps them reading all the way to the end? So many of these little choices start to stack up. Do we put cursing in it or do we leave it out? Do we use big, beautiful, bold language or do we keep it simple, clean, and clear? How deep should we go into description? And when we bring in new characters, what details do we give the reader and how many? All of these questions can be really easy to answer if you get one thing right, and that's your narrative device. Once you have your narrative device locked, it makes all of these little decisions so much easier. And again, good news, you're already doing this every day in your normal life. My name is Tim Grahl. I'm the CEO and publisher at StoryGrid, and I've been working with writers for over 15 years. Everything in this training and everything we do at StoryGrid is based on the 30 plus years of writing and editing experience of my partner, Sean Coyne, the creator and founder of StoryGrid. We, as artists, want our work to be enjoyed by thousands, if not millions, of readers. We want to make sure we produce books that are read, beloved, and recommended by readers so that they continue to spread long into the future. But how do you do this? How do you create a book that one reader will love, but will also appeal to thousands or millions of people? One of the tenets of storytelling that Sean is always reminding me of is that specificity breeds universality. The more specific you make a story, the more general it becomes, the more it applies to lots and lots of people. And of course, the more general and vague you make your story, the less likely it will resonate with anybody. So the idea here is, if you can write a book that is specific to one person, that one person will love, it is much more likely to go out into the world and become a success where thousands and thousands, if not millions of people go on to love your writing. And the way we're going to do this is with our narrative device. But before we get into that, let's just do a quick kind of fun exercise. So let's imagine something crazy happens one day. You're at a bookstore, you've got a couple new titles tucked under your arm, you're standing in line waiting to check out, when a guy in a ski mask and waving a knife comes running in, runs up to the register and demands all the money in the register. Well, just when you're getting freaked out, this woman from in front of you in the line runs up, jumps on the guy's back and starts punching him in the face. The guy's swinging his knife, cuts her arm, but ends up dropping the knife, and so then he gets freaked out. He throws the woman off of him, starts running towards the door, and then stops right next to the romance display. He selects 2 or 3 titles, tucks them under his arm, turns around, thanks all of you, hopes you have a nice day, and then heads out the door. Okay, that's a nutso story, but you gotta tell somebody about it, right? So let's imagine you're going to tell 3 different people what happened in that bookstore. The first is, that night, you go meet some friends at a bar for drinks, and you tell them about the story. But also, you have to go downtown and talk to a police sergeant and tell him what happened as well. And then the next day, you're talking to your 9-year-old daughter and you're going to tell her what happened. Now, here's what I want you to recognize. With each of those 3 people, you're going to tell the story in a different way. With your friends at the bar, especially after a few drinks, you might use some colorful language, you might embellish some things, play down some other things. Maybe you even become the person that jumps on the guy's back. You're going to tell the story in a particular way. And then when you're telling the police officer what happened, you're also going to tell it differently. You're going to probably keep your language very strict, tell him exactly what happened, exactly what you saw, not embellish that much, very few adverbs and adjectives, and just tell him step by step exactly what happened. Now, when you're talking to your 9-year-old daughter, you're definitely going to change the way you tell the story. You don't want it to get too scary. You might leave the part out where somebody got cut with a knife. You're definitely not going to use any colorful language. The whole tone and style of the story is going to change, and it's going to change based on each of those 3 different people. So this is what I want you to see. Before we get into the technical nature of the narrative device, I want you to see that this is something you do all the time. Depending on the person in front of you that you're telling something to, you automatically change the way you tell the story. You change the language you use, the details you point out, how you embellish it, the tone and the style, and with each one of them, you fill a particular role. So with your friends at the bar, you're a friend. When you're in front of the police officer, you're a concerned citizen. And when you're talking to your 9-year-old daughter, you're a parent. So you're playing different roles and you're telling the story in different ways depending on who you're telling the story to. And once you have those two things in mind, it helps you know what to put in the story and what to leave out. This is the narrative device. It's something you're doing intuitively already. So now let's talk about how you can actually apply this to your writing to help you make all of these decisions. The narrative device is made up of 3 parts. The first is the author. The second is the single audience member, who we call Sam. And the third is the problem. So let's just go through those one at a time. The first is the author. Now, of course, the author is you, but it's not all of you. It's not the full embodiment of you as the person. It's a particular personality that you're going to play, a particular role you're going to fill, or particular archetype that you're going to play when telling this story. So again, it's not the full embodiment of who you are. It is you filling a particular role. Just like you fulfill the role of friend, concerned citizen, or good parent, you're going to fill a role when telling your story, and that role is the author of your story. Second is the single audience member, the Sam. This is the specific person that you're telling the story to. Now, this has to be one specific person. It can't be a group of people. It can't be an amalgamation of a bunch of different people. It is one specific person. Now, this does not always mean it's an actual real person in real life, and often it's not, but you have to be really specific about the person you're telling the story to, and that is your Sam, your single audience member. This is how we put the specificity into your story. The third piece is the problem. This is the problem that your Sam has that you're going to tell them a story to help give them the wisdom and knowledge so they can solve it. So the whole point of telling your story is to allow the reader, the single audience member, to learn something and have a cathartic experience at the end of your story. You want them to change the way they see themselves and the world around them. Now, I go deep into this when I talk about the double factor problem and the non-negotiable, and I put those videos down in the description of this video so you can go dive into those. But for now, we're just talking about the problem that your Sam has. And here's a quick hint for you. Your Sam, your single audience member, their problem is the same problem that your protagonist is having in your story. By dialing in your narrative device, getting really clear on who you are as the author, the role that you're filling, who your single audience member is, that specific person, and the reason you're telling them the story, the problem you're trying to solve for Sam, once you lock that in, it helps you make so many decisions about your story. So let's look at 3 different examples. The first is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So if we break down the narrative device, the author is J.R.R. Tolkien playing the role of a grandfather. And he's telling the story to his grandchild to answer the question, when do you stay home and stay safe? And when do you risk adventure and explore the world? And if you reread The Hobbit with that in mind, with this idea of a grandfather telling a story to his grandchild, you'll see it show up over and over and over. You'll see it in the language that's used, how it's simple and straightforward, the way he describes things, and even in a couple moments in the book where he steps out of the story and he assures the reader that Bilbo's going to be okay. That's exactly what you would do to your grandchild when you're telling them a scary story about goblins. So let's look at another example, Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. The author is Kevin Kwan playing the role of an older, wiser woman. The Sam is a young, naive woman who's in love. And the problem the author is trying to help Sam with is, when do you conform to culture and family, and when do you stand out as an individual? And again, if you read Crazy Rich Asians with this in mind, you'll see that showing up over and over and over. And finally, let's look at The Martian by Andy Weir. The author is Andy Weir playing the role of a brilliant astrophysicist. This Sam is a young, ambitious boy, and the problem is, how do you overcome an insurmountable problem? And that's what we see when we read The Martian. We see Mark Watney stuck in this insurmountable problem, and the way that he overcomes it is by systematically applying scientific solutions to every little problem he comes across. So if you read it again with this in mind, you'll see that the language, the ideas, how the story is told fits within this narrative device. By identifying your narrative device, it fixes so many problems in your story. It helps you understand what language to use, how much exposition to put in your story, what details to include, what details to leave off, what characters need to be in your story, and so many other things. And again, the good news is you do this automatically every day in your life when you're talking to other people. So all you have to do is learn how to apply that to your writing as well. Now, I want to be clear here. This doesn't have to be set in reality all the time. You could be a wizened old dragon telling a story to a young, ambitious dragon. Like, it can be whatever you want, but it has to be specific. We have to know the exact role that you, the author, are playing. We have to know your Sam, the specific person you're telling the story to, and the problem you're trying to help Sam solve. Now, this doesn't always go on the page. This isn't something you actually write in the book, but you have to have it firmly planted in your mind in order to tell a clear, coherent story that your reader will love, because specificity breeds universality. While the narrative device is an extremely useful tool in your writing, it's not the only one you need, which is why we keep putting out great training videos here on our YouTube channel. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so you get notified of all the future videos we put out. And of course, we have lots of other resources available for you at storygrid.com, articles, videos, and make sure you sign up for our email newsletter. That's where we send out our newest and best stuff. But as always, thanks for being a writer. Thanks for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid, and I'll see you next time.